After just over 2 excruciatingly long decades of asking questions, Tears of the Kingdom is finally trying to give us answers, while simultaneously giving us a billion more questions, that is. As the question pile keeps on growing, we at last might be able to answer some of the biggest questions that have been living rent-free in our heads ever since 1998, starting with Ocarina of Time. During my playthrough of Tears of the Kingdom, I picked up on several things that could potentially lead us down the path of discovering the truth behind some of the most interesting theories the Zelda series has ever produced. Here are 3 of those unanswered Zelda theories that just might have finally been solved. The Triforce has always been the most iconic artifact in the entire Zelda series. Even though the symbol itself did not originate from the games, it has become inseparable from the franchise. The first thing that people think about when they catch sight of these 3 golden triangles, without fail, is The Legend of Zelda. After Ocarina of Time came out, rumors began to spread about the validity of the Triforce. On the Hylian shield, people noticed at the bottom there was a 4th golden triangle, a piece that would have fit perfectly into the center of the already established Triforce. Speculation ran wild with theories about an unconfirmed 4th piece of the Triforce potentially coming together to create the community-dubbed Tetraforce. The implications of such a thing could have thrown the entire series into question. Who was the creator of this 4th piece? What does it even symbolize? Was there any evidence in the previous games that may hint at this even further that was overlooked? Needless to say, the Zelda community was very busy putting this new information through the grinder. So busy, in fact, that the developers caught wind of the speculation. With every new Zelda game release moving forward, the Hylian shield was redesigned without the 4th golden triangle. It seemed that the developers did not want people to think that they intended for a 4th piece of the Triforce to exist, so they swiftly ended all future discussion about it. The community took this as a sign that it was just a neat shield texture and that it was never really meant to be seen as anything more than that. Theories and rumors almost entirely died off, as the implication of a 4th piece was never hinted at ever again in the Zelda series. Until Tears of the Kingdom, at least. What if I told you that the Tetraforce is actually real? What if I told you that it has actually been real since the very beginning, and we've been staring at it all this time? Don't believe me? Well, let's just go ahead and fix that. In Tears of the Kingdom, we come across a horned statue. This is the same horned statue that we can find in Breath of the Wild, but this time, we're given some backstory about it. The horned statue is said to have once been a god who gave life in exchange for monetary compensation. You can sell a heart piece or a stamina vessel to this statue and are given the choice to buy back one of the 2 of your choosing for essentially 20 rupees. This act was frowned upon by the goddess Hylia. Life for money bargains was a despicable behavior for a god to indulge in, so she banished him, turning him into the horned statue that we see now and placed him in a village. His dubious dealings still did not cease. Hylia had to move this greedy god 3 separate times until we find him ourselves in Tears of the Kingdom. Jaren tells us that the existence of a goddess of light implies that there also exists her opposite, a god of darkness. Like light and dark, one cannot exist without the other. Their power manifests through the other's existence. This is a major discovery that suggests that there has always existed a god of darkness, a deity on the same level as Hylia since the creation of the world. What does this have to do with the Tetraforce, you might be asking? Diving a little deeper into the implication of a god of darkness, we can discover that this game has even more to say about the era of creation. Deep below the surface of Hyrule, lurking in the depths, are gargantuan stone statues called Bargainer statues. These enormous obelisks are the undertakers of the underworld. Poe's spirits of the deceased are given equal passage onto the afterlife through these statues. The most prominent Bargainer statue is found in the great abandoned central mine, where we're tasked with recovering its 4 stolen eyes. Doing so, we are gifted a heart container or a stamina vessel. That's strange. Now we have another statue who can also bless us with life or power. Isn't it a bit odd to you how the horned statue and Bargainer statues can grant us the same blessings as the goddess statues? Before we even meet the bargainer statue in the Great Abandoned Central Mine, one of the smaller versions of them directs us to the Temple of Time on the Great Plateau. Upon arriving at the Temple of Time, we notice that the goddess statue is glowing. Speaking to it, the bargainer statue is shockingly able to channel itself through the goddess statue and talk to us. How is this even possible? This must mean that the bargainer statues are linked to a deity that's on the same level as Hylia, the god of darkness. Since Hylia was reincarnated as Zelda, but is still somehow able to interact with us through goddess statues and even physically moving the position of the horned statue, it's safe to say that some part of her still lives on and acts independently from Zelda. The same thing could be said for the horned statue. If the god of darkness has been turned into the horned statue, then it's safe to assume that the statues that were linked to him, the bargainer statues, can continue to conduct their operations independently from him. Another interesting connection between the horned statue and the bargainer statues are their fascination with making deals. The Japanese name for the quest, a deal with the statue, originally says a deal with the devil. The devil has always been associated with making deals with people in exchange for something of great significance to them. Being referred to as the literal devil, it's hard not to put this statue's status on par with Hylia. As with light, so comes darkness. Looking back on the bargainer statues, we can now make even further observations about them. They are strangely located directly beneath every major goddess statue on the surface. One of them, the Plains bargainer statue, at first seems to be randomly placed as there isn't anything of note directly above it. But the Great Sky Island does in fact have a goddess statue which perfectly lines up with the placement of the Plains bargainer statue. One could argue that the Temple of Time and the Great Sky Island used to be situated on the Great Plateau, exactly where the current Temple of Time is, which is true, so how could there be a bargainer statue beneath it now that it's in the sky? You might think that these statues were built after the fact, but keep in mind, Hylia is still able to move statues around even while manifesting as a statue herself. It's safe to say that the bargainer statues are capable of doing the same thing. One of them just simply moved underneath the new location of the goddess statue in the sky. These statues seem to be far more than simple man-made creations. It's almost as if they are gods themselves. With one of the bargainer statues now in a different spot, the goddess statue in the Great Plateau's newer Temple of Time should have sat unmirrored. I'm willing to bet that not only can these statues move each other around, I'd even go as far as to say that they can make more of themselves, which explains how there's still a bargainer statue under the Great Plateau. One cannot exist without the other after all. The springs of courage, power, and wisdom also have their own bargainer statue, as well as the Forgotten Temple. But what does all of this mean? How can an entity be so involved in the series and yet go completely unseen up until now? I have an idea on why this has been the case for so long, and how it can help us discover the truth behind the existence of the Tetraforce. The arrival of the zonai depicted in these murals marked a new chapter in the history of Hyrule. These murals recollect the tale of their descent from the heavens and how they came to be worshipped by the ancient Hylians. What might go unnoticed, however, is something only ever seen once in the entire game. Something so small and seemingly insignificant that people might easily overlook it. On the second mural, perched on the very top, lies a crest. Similar to the crest of Hylia adopted by the royal family of Hyrule, this unknown crest has 3 eyes in place of the 3 Triforce pieces. The zonai have a third eye, which could imply that the 3 golden goddesses that represent the Triforce might have also been zonai, and that they are represented here by their third eye instead of the Triforce piece they're affiliated with. Since the zonai are said to be the descendants of the gods, maybe their worship was more directed towards the 3 golden goddesses on a more personal level, rather than through their artifact, the Triforce, that the people of the surface worshipped them through. If the Triforce was depicted as the third eyes of the goddesses, then perhaps we can draw some sort of connection to something else from this information somehow. We already have our answer, the bargainer statues. This is where things are about to start coming together. The 4 eyes of the bargainer statues could very well represent symbolic proof of the existence of the Tetraforce. Being associated with the god of darkness, these statues usher life unto death. Death is an avoided subject in Japanese culture, more so than just your average common avoidance you or I might be familiar with. In Japanese, the number 4 is associated with misfortune. In their language, the word for 4, shi, is also used for the word death. Due to this coincidence, you'll often find hotel rooms completely skipping the number 4, jumping from 3 to 5 in order to ensure that guests feel as comfortable as possible during their stay. Sleeping in a room with a number 4 on it is seen as unsettling and therefore it's avoided. For such a belief to be so strong to completely influence how entire buildings are designed, the strength of these beliefs may very well have carried over into The Legend of Zelda. The Tetraforce theory is based upon the potentially missing piece that would fit in the middle of the Triforce. But what if the Triforce isn't technically missing a piece at all? The empty slot in the middle is the 4th piece. When the 3 pieces of the Triforce are assembled, along with them the 4th piece is formed. It seems that even the holy golden goddesses of creation have an opposite. Has the goddess of chaos finally been confirmed? Remember, light cannot exist without darkness. Through the other's existence is where they manifest their power. Without the Triforce pieces of courage, power, and wisdom coming together, the unseen 4th piece could never be formed. The Bargainer statues, being aligned with Hylia's opposite, the god of darkness, would not shy away from displaying their affiliation to the shunned 4th goddess of chaos. In the end, I can see no reason why death itself would have any issues with using the unholy number 4. Now that we have talked about the horned statue in its previous form being Hylia's reflection, the god of darkness, we can pretty much finally confirm the origin story of Demise and how he obtained his anti-Master Sword. Much like how Hylia had a chosen knight, it would make sense that the god of darkness also had their own chosen warrior. Demise claims to have a burning hatred for the gods that never falters, but it's never explained why he harbors such ill will towards them. This is just pure speculation on my part, so please don't break my legs, but the 3 golden goddesses might be responsible for his campaign against them. You see, before their arrival, the world was said to have been a place of chaos, implying that there actually was some sort of pre-existing world untampered by their involvement. Din created the surface, Furor created life, and Nehru created the laws of the world that life is bound to. But what about the theorized 4th goddess? What did she create? It turns out that she may have already been there before the others even arrived. The world of chaos was her creation. With the arrival of the 3 golden goddesses, her creation was covered up by Din's new layer of earth, which is why it's literally called the surface, and her demons were essentially banished to dwell in the depths. The coming together of the 3 pieces of the Triforce could also symbolize the sealing of the goddess of chaos. While all of this was happening, a lone demon was witnessing his entire world being turned inside out by unknown invaders. Din seeking to control him, his people, and their natural ways by locking them away underneath their more ideal version of the world, sprawling with Furor's perfect image of life, and attempting to bind them to Nehru's laws. The lone demon was overtaken with hatred. In his fiery rage, he was recognized by the god of darkness, and a deal was struck. A wicked blade was forged and bestowed upon the new king of demons, the sword that seals the light, brandishing an inverted Triforce to mock his enemies. The loyal demon lord and spirit of the blade of Holy's bane, Girahim, was created. He was granted the power to reclaim his world from the invaders and lead his fellow demons into battle against the surface dwellers. Like I said before, the origin story of Demise is speculation, but I thought I should present my theory about it just to get it out there. His sword, on the other hand, is not speculation. The god of darkness and Demise definitely collaborated at some point in order for such a blade to exist. One final point of speculation is the curse that Demise places upon the blood of the goddess and the spirit of the hero might not be an actual curse. He might be referencing the fact that as long as there is light, there will always be darkness. Since both Link and Demise were chosen knights by the goddess of light and the god of darkness, their destinies have been forever interconnected, to battle it out for the rest of eternity. The struggle for rightful ownership of the world will never end until there is nothing left of it to own. Alright, so this last theory is going to be short and sweet, because to me, after coming to this realization, it's pretty cut and dry. I know that a lot of people are in opposition of the theory that the Zelda timeline has converged with Breath of the Wild. Trust me, I know. It's honestly not what a lot of us want to hear. It does feel like a major cop-out, in that it blatantly disregards the previous games in the series and all of the lore that has built up until Breath of the Wild. I'll just go ahead and show you how I believe I've proven the timeline convergence theory. Here it is. Here is my proof. Zelda in all of her glory. What, how is this proof, you ask? Okay, well, Let me just pull up a couple of PNG files on the screen and demonstrate how this proves anything. If Zelda goes back in time in an era just before the Imprisoning War, but right after the founding of Hyrule's kingdom, then she would chronologically be right here. Alright, now let's animate this picture of Zelda going back to Tears of the Kingdom.
Oh no.
Now hold on just a second. How is she supposed to go back to Tears of the Kingdom? The timeline splits. She couldn't have just went from point B to point A and then back to point B again. There's literally no possible way for her to have accomplished this unless the timelines converged into a single point somewhere along the way. Zelda straight up mentions events from previous Zelda games in every timeline during the ceremony of her blessing Link in Breath of the Wild. This was supposed to be the smoking gun evidence that proved the convergence theory, but we remained skeptical in hopes that there would be an official announcement about the timeline placement. There's only two possibilities here. Either the timelines converged with Breath of the Wild, or Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are hard reboots of the series with their very own timeline and unique series of historical events. A brand new timeline where the last games in the series are already made that fills itself out backwards as more games release would be pretty cool, I'll admit. We'll just have to wait and see how Nintendo handles the Zelda series from here onward. So, what did you think about my theories? Let me know in the comments section down below. If you enjoyed yourself, there is much more to come in the future, so please, subscribe and stick around for another onslaught of Zelda lore from Gossip Geist.